Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 83?
Senate Bill 83 by Senator Smallwood and Coleman and Representative Luck concerning the emergency possession of certain relinquished children and newborn safety devices.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 83 and the associated committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee report added freestanding emergency departments. It was adopted, and we ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Seeing no further discussion on the committee report, the motion is the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report for Senate Bill 83. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate Bill 83 authorizes a fire station, hospital, community clinic, emergency center, and all other authorized facility to install a newborn safety device on its premises for parents who voluntarily relinquish their child who is 72 hours old or younger. The safety devices will not be mandatory, however. They will offer an additional safe surrender point to parents. Safety devices will not be the fiscal responsibility of the fire department or district, as monies are typically raised through community donations. Due to this, there is no fiscal note associated with the bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the good senator from Denver for co-prime sponsoring Senate Bill 83. And just a couple of points on that to remember is that the key word here is authorize. So currently, these devices are not allowed in the state of Colorado. This bill would simply be permissive if a fire station, if a hospital, if a freestanding emergency department decides that they would like to install one of these, to comply with all the rules for installing one of these and maintaining these, because there's a tremendous amount of maintenance, including the testing of these. If they voluntarily choose to install one, this law would allow them to do so. There is no mandate, there's no expectation, as we discussed at length in committee. Realistically, there are some of these facilities, fire departments, hospitals, emergency rooms, particularly those in rural, resort, and frontier Colorado, where candidly it's simply not practical, and we don't really expect them to be installed. But with those where they can be, and if they really want to, we again want to be permissive and at least allow them to if they choose to do so. Would ask for your aye vote.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to have a little bit of discussion on this bill, because I'm, not lucky enough to serve on the Health Committee. So I was unavailable to participate in the debate. Why is this bill needed? Senator, I'd like to ask Senator Coleman, the good senator from Denver.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the other good senator from Denver, the question is, why is this bill needed? For me, the bill is needed because several advocates from our communities reached out and said, look, we already have it in law for us to be able to relinquish our baby, whether it's at a hospital or a fire department. We actually codified the bill in 2017 when I first got elected and made it so that fire departments could be an additional place for you to relinquish your baby. When they came to us, many of the conversations were, it's already a traumatic experience as a mother, which is an experience I've never had, will never have, to relinquish my baby and hand deliver my baby to a hospital worker or a fire department at a fire station. What I would love is I'd love a safe, clean, effective way of being able to relinquish my baby without interaction. And for me, I said, look, that's something that you're supportive of and you want. I'm more than happy to advocate for that. And that's why this bill is needed. That's why we're running it.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that response. Organizationally, who in this state is prepared? I appreciate the response from women and mothers as they are, and parents as they are navigating that experience. What institutions, should this bill become law, are prepared to implement such a policy around a baby in a box?
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another great question from the other good senator from Denver. The answer is there may be institutions that are prepared and there may not be institutions that are prepared. This is why it's opt-in. In order to actually be an institution with a device for newborn safety, you have to go through the process of making sure that you're prepared, you're educated about that process, you have to opt in order to be able to do it. And so the likelihood of someone opting into this process without being prepared to do so is highly unlikely.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so if I'm understanding correctly, that there are no institutions who are asking for this policy to be enacted at this time.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So your question wasn't, are there institutions asking? Your question was, are there institutions prepared for this? So I had a personal conversation at my local fire department because I wanted to know on the way home, is this something that if I was going to pass this bill and they decided they want to institute it, what would their perspective be? Would they be able to do it? For them, they say, listen, we're already a place where a mother can relinquish her child up until a certain point, hand deliver, but right now we are unable to do this without that process. We could not have a safety device. So there wasn't any opposition to it, but for me, when I asked them, based off of what the advocate said, they said, hey, this is something that we would definitely be supportive of.
Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually served on the Senate Health and Human Services Committee yesterday when we heard this bill, and I was concerned because I heard the testimony from organizations, since we're talking about Colorado maternal health here, and I heard the testimony from 3 important maternal health organizations in Colorado: Elephant Circle, Soul to Soul, and Calore. All 3 are leaders in what we really want to define as proper care and work in mental health, in maternal health. And they all 3 are opposed to this bill. It did pass out of committee by only 1 vote. And so I have a lot of concerns about this, and I'll tell you more personally why. I believe there is a loss of human contact when you have a baby and you put it in a box. And that is very concerning to me. And I just don't think we have really flushed this out yet. I don't think we have really thought about what it would be like for a woman who has carried a baby to term, and then what are the consequences? What are the counseling needs? What is the family going to go through? We have not really thought this policy through. And the thought of putting a baby in a box, I'm sorry, I just can't go there. I don't think we've really, really thought about all the aspects of this bill.
Senator Gonzalez.
Are there companies that specialize in creating this type of device? Are they advocating for this bill? Did they testify in support in committee?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the senator from Denver for that question. There are manufacturers of newborn safety devices. I had one stakeholdering conference call several months ago, this was probably 90 days ago, that I believe, but I'm not sure, that a representative from a manufacturer was on that call. They certainly know that they were not the driving force behind the legislation. That was myself. But there was at least one manufacturer, but the specifics as far as whether there are multiple, I do not know, but there was certainly no opposition from that person on the stakeholdering call. But to answer your question directly about testimony, nobody from any manufacturer showed up for testimony to either support or oppose the bill.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, Senator. How much would one of these devices, if they were to be installed, cost a local government or an organization or a hospital or a school or wherever else is authorized under this bill? Okay. Do you have an answer on that?
Senator Coleman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the question is, how much would it cost? We don't have that answer. I think part of the issue is who would be the responsible party for paying for it. And when we talked to advocates, advocates said this is something that, which is why there's no fiscal appropriation to it, there's no note. This is something that the community who desire to have this in their particular fire department or hospital would be in support of fundraising the dollars. If that case for gift grants and donations, there's no appropriation for the bill.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did fire departments come forward and testify in support of the bill?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Senator from Denver for the question. No, I do not believe anybody from any special district testified, but let me put this a little bit in perspective. So my first session here, I ran a safe haven bill regarding expanding the definition of safe haven newborn drop-off locations to include freestanding emergency departments. Every single one of you who was in this building at that time voted yes for that bill. So if we change the question a little, how many hospitals came to testify about supporting themselves being included in the safe haven law? That everybody in both chambers voted. There were 0 no votes, colleagues. 0 no votes when we did that. Nobody asked in any of the committee meetings or on the floor in either chambers, well, how much does it cost to expand the definition of freestanding, to expand the definition of eligible drop-off locations to freestandings? Nobody during any of the testimony asked the hospitals themselves, how do you feel about being included in this expansion? Okay, so to be fair, having sponsored 2 of these pieces of legislation, that again, not a single no vote in either chamber in any committee, this was not something that was brought up then. If it was, maybe I would have had the foresight to then expand a little bit more when it came to this bill. There was a bill the very next year, which again, every single one of you who was in either chamber at that time voted yes for, not a single no vote, which expanded the education around Colorado's safe haven laws to include the education of safe haven as part of, call it sex ed, across the state of Colorado. Shall we include that? Not a single no vote in any committee or in any chamber, 100 to nothing. We all, as legislators, said, this is important. This is something we all agree on and we all want. And not once in committee, not once on the floor of either chamber did somebody say, well, has anybody talked to the schools to see whether or not the schools supported being included in this piece of legislation? Nobody asked that question. Had they, I might have had the foresight to answer the senator from Denver's questions a little bit more, maybe more to their satisfaction. But this is a topic that historically has had broad bipartisan support. We have broad bipartisan support today. We have sponsors from both parties in both chambers. And had I anticipated that this would be something that is now meriting a larger conversation, I should say, then you know, I'll confess, maybe we would have broadened the stakeholdering process from just the folks that we had to include more folks across the state of Colorado. But I felt based on this small expansion of existing laws that had broad bipartisan bicameral support that we answered those questions. And at this point, I don't remember what your original question was. Did the firefighting community, did the hospital community, did the school community, did any other community come out to support or oppose this bill being included? The answer is no.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one kind of caught me by surprise. When I hear the discussion on this, my visualization goes to the Amazon boxes that we, take our extra packages and put them there and alert somebody that, oh, it's time, to come pick up your package. So my question is, how long can a baby be in the box before there's going to be a problem? They talked about testing the devices. Is that what the test is to see when you set them down that an alarm goes? I mean, how do the people inside of whatever facility this device is will know that the baby is in the box? And then I guess the question is, how long can a baby stay in a box before the tragedy happens where maybe this baby is going to perish? And then who's going to be liable for that? Will it be the institution that has the box in front of their store, or is it going to be the mother who left the baby there thinking that everything was okay, that this was a good device? So those are just the initial questions that have come up from reading this and hearing to the initial conversation.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the senator from Centennial for those questions. Those were questions, by the way, that we've had throughout the building, because I think it is easy without actually seeing a photo. Perhaps I should have put an easel up. I think it actually would have been helpful for a lot of folks, had it been permitted, to show what these devices look like, and I would be happy to share with the senator some photos of what the devices look like. They are designed to provide information to the relinquishing parent or the relinquishing party, including the crisis line that's there with information, toll-free number right there upon the device. When the device is opened, there is a bassinet there. It is temperature controlled because obviously it's linked to the interior of the building. And there must be, according to this bill, a dual alarm system for those devices. So if a facility chooses to install one of these, and again, I know I sound like a broken record, but a facility has to choose to do this. Exactly to the senator's point, if you're in charge of a fire station in Frontier, Colorado, and it's staffed sporadically with volunteer firefighters, let's say, or volunteers, period, a facility like that, I would say would not, but on the microphone I'll tell you, definitely should not even consider installing a newborn safety device. Because to the senator's point, there may or may not be somebody there. It would be irresponsible for them to even make such a consideration. But for a facility that wants to do that, the direct answer to the question is there's a dual alarm system. By statute, has to be. This isn't theoretical. By statute, a newborn safety device must have a dual alarm system. That dual alarm system needs to be tested weekly, and the device itself needs to be physically checked at least 2 times per day. So I suppose, theoretically, a child could be in a newborn safety device for hours, but practically speaking, of the 200-some relinquishments across the country, the testimony we heard in committee was that there has never been a relinquished child in a device for more than 5 minutes, and the average is more like 90 seconds because of the dual alarm systems that go off. But I very much appreciate the question. It's a very profound question, and I'm happy to share specific photos and details of the device if the senator or if anybody else is interested.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm reading the original statute here. And the statute, as it is currently contemplated, prior to this bill, states the firefighter or staff member of the hospital or community clinic emergency center shall, without a court order, take temporary physical custody of the child. Is there really a need to define what the box looks like and the device? Why is this bill needed?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I answer that question, which I will, I want to apologize to the senator from Centennial in giving mixing up my numbers, 207 active devices in the United States with 44 surrendered children, not 207 surrendered children. So 207 devices, 44 children that have been surrendered. The question from the senator from Denver, why is the bill needed? Well, the bill, from my perspective, is needed for one reason and one reason only. Again, we're talking about a live newborn, and we have the example of just in the last 12 months, 2 mothers in our state convicted of murdering their newborn children. One, Peyton Green, 90 days ago, Ms. Green was sentenced to 40 years in prison for murdering her newborn child. Amy Grace Carr, 10 months ago, sentenced to 55 years in prison for murdering her newborn child. So for me, this is a huge reason why this bill is necessary. I'll tell you why it's necessary. I'll tell you exactly why. Because anything that we can do as a society to help a mother in crisis who has delivered a baby and does not want to keep that baby, any option that we can give that mother so that the idea of murdering their child and spending 40 to 55 years in prison for doing so is not an option for me, colleagues. If we can do something that's easy and safe and free, that not only saves the life of a child, that's great, but also saves the life of a mother. These were statistics that I just happened to pull up in committee. This is within the last year, these 2 convictions in Colorado, and we're in a growing state. So the answer, I would hope, seems obvious. If there's a free, safe, what we thought non-controversial way of helping a mother out of crisis, and by the way, along the way, saving a newborn from potentially being murdered, why wouldn't we at least consider that? Why wouldn't we put it as an option? Very much like the senator from Denver, my co-prime sponsor, has mentioned, I have had dozens of conversations with women over the course of the last 120 days, just asking them, anecdotally, if you had a baby, you delivered a baby. Because remember, that's all this bill is talking about. We're talking about we already have a newborn baby. We're already dealing with a baby a live baby who has been delivered. Let's start with that. What is the likelihood, if you did not want that child, that you would be more comfortable handing that baby to another human being, which is the only thing allowed in statute today? The senator from Denver is absolutely correct. That is the only option we have in Colorado. I think I said Denver. That's the only option we have in the state of Colorado today, is to physically hand your baby, not just to anybody, but to an actual employee of a fire station, a hospital, or a freestanding emergency department. You'll find that if you keep reading. In those conversations, I asked, would you be more likely to hand that baby to another human being? And in my thinking as, again, a male who'll never deliver a child, what somebody must go through to look another human being eye to eye and say, I can't take care of this baby, here you go, versus allowing them the option. Because this is just an option. And as I've already confessed, it's not going to be an option for everyone. It's not going to be an option across the state. But if we can help a few people with another option, for that mother that says, I am simply not comfortable looking another human being eye to eye and handing a baby, I would just much rather be able to place that baby in a bassinet, grab the information that is in that bassinet, paperwork that talks about, hey, do you want to maybe consider not doing this and doing a physical handoff instead, everything that comes with that, counseling information that's all there. Do we want to provide that simply as an option or an alternative? Of course we do. Why would we not want to? And again, I appreciate the logical arguments, like, tell me about the box, tell me about the facility, tell me about the alarms, tell me about that type of thing. But hopefully that helps. That is, I'm not going to be foolish enough to speak for my co-prime sponsor, but that's the reason why I'm running it, to do whatever we can to make sure that the Peyton Greens, the Amy Grace Carrs, don't spend the next several decades rotting away in prison. By the way, they were 19 and 20 at the time this happened. So when we talk about an entire life ruined, I think that's pretty safe to say. I think that's pretty accurate to say an entire life ruined. We can help those folks and to boot save the life of their children instead. Seemed like a good bill to me.
Senator Gonzalez.
I'm going to stand over here because the good senator from Parker is way taller than I am. But I appreciate hearing those stories, and it's part of what drives my interest in the policy, because I'm kind of surprised that these questions didn't come up in committee. But I read existing statute to say this staff, the person, shall without a court order take temporary physical custody of the child. And then it proceeds on forward. Nowhere in statute do I read language that says there has to be a handoff face to face and eye to eye. I don't read that in statute. So why need physical custody means physical custody. Agreed. Possession of the child. Possession of the child. Are we going to have to run another bill next year in order to ensure, like, if a volunteer wants to take custody, in order to amend that? Are we going to have to, next year, the year after, when another bassinet company wants to put forward a bill in order to clarify that not only are these temporary devices, but that, also temporary bassinets are eligible? I read the existing statute pretty clearly to be broad enough to be inclusive of these the goal that you were trying to accomplish, of the temporary boxes, without needing the bill. This is not about, for me, being callous towards individuals when they're in that moment of crisis trying to make decisions. So please don't read my questions as such. I'm just asking, why isn't current statute already permissive and inclusive of the goal that you are seeking to achieve? So, seeing nobody from the institution side asking for this makes me wonder whether this bill is the current statute that you all passed before my time. I would have asked those questions then, too, had I been here, but I wasn't. So, had those questions been asked, I would be curious. Because I read current statute to already be inclusive, to allow the goal that you are seeking to achieve to take place. But now that you've raised the question around murder and criminal consequences, that brings me to a question. What happens should a new parent drop off at one of these, in one of these new devices? A newborn child who is 73 hours old. This question I'd like to direct to the good senator from Denver.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the senator from Denver, you cannot just drop off a child anywhere today under current statute. It's very clear. It's in the bill in about 1,000 places. I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. It's not really 1,000 places. It's in several places that you have to drop your child off to a firefighter at a fire station or a staff member at a hospital, a community clinic, or emergency room, or a freestanding emergency room. That's why we need the bill, because the language isn't expansive today. This would make it more expansive. That's the only place in statute. I'm happy to take a senatorial 5 and show it in all of the places where the only place you're allowed to drop it off.
Senatorial 5? No. The motion. Senatorial 5.
No, I'm good. I asked a question about what happens on hour 73. And there doesn't seem to be a response. And so
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L002 to House or to Senate Bill 83?
L002, amend printed bill, page 2, line
Senator
15.
Gonzalez.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002 to Senate Bill 83.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we really are trying to prevent harm to these children, and in order to ensure that there's not criminal or DNN cases, dependency and neglect cases filed against these parents, why not broaden the bill to be more inclusive? So my bill, or my amendment, shifts 72 hours to 72 months. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the good senator from Denver for what I think is an attempt at humor. She was already beaten to the punch by several of my colleagues who asked that we extend it out to at least age 18, if not age 25. So I appreciate the good-natured attempt at the amendment. My colleagues have already beat you to the punch. On a more serious note, we did have that discussion with advocates who potentially would like this to be extended. I personally pushed back quite a bit on that after conversations with law enforcement several years ago on the first bill, which is I'm not comfortable opening up that window any longer due to a bunch of other extenuating circumstances that law enforcement would have an issue with. But again, appreciate the senator from Denver's gesture. Would ask for a no vote.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 83. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L002 is lost. To the bill, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then what happens at hour 73? I return back to my original question.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anything outside what we put in statute opens up a parent for charges on child abandonment.
Senator Gonzalez.
What happens to a parent who puts in an injured infant into this device?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Interesting hypothetical, and the answer is, as I'm guessing the senator from Denver knows, it depends. Depends on the extent of the injuries. I mean, if it's a scratch versus if it's 2 amputated legs, the potential charges from law enforcement would differ.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What happens if a parent, in that moment of crisis, puts a dead infant into the box?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked that question specifically 120 days ago, and the answer I received back from law enforcement is that law enforcement would more than likely, although I'm not foolish enough to speak on behalf of law enforcement would pursue an investigation and the subsequent murder charges.
Senator Gonzalez.
And how would such an investigation comport with the safety laws and the safe haven laws contemplated under your bill if you're giving individuals specific permission to do so?
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator from Denver. The statute's very clear that it talks about the relinquishment of children, not of dead people. Dropping off dead people anywhere across the state of Colorado is a crime.
The motion, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm just asking some questions because I didn't have the benefit of being in our Health and Human Services Committee. I don't question the fact that that moment of crisis, when folks navigate, making the decision to relinquish their newborn, their child, comes at great anguish. But I read current statute as already being inclusive of the aim that you were trying to achieve, to the good senator from Parker. I appreciate the work that both the good senator from Parker and the senator from Denver have already done. This bill's, y'all did good work. Before my time. Probably would have voted for it then. Probably would have had these same questions then. Didn't have the good fortune of being here back in 2017. I read statute to already allow this to come forward. This idea, should there be an institution in the state who wants to pay for one of these boxes? And so it makes me wonder, why are we passing this bill? I respect that you're surprised that it may not have been controversial. But you know, I didn't have committee yesterday, so I just sat around and twiddled my thumbs, wondering what bills I could read. My question about DNN cases and about criminal charges that may attach. I think are germane to this discussion because this policy, if adopted, if I am to take the senator from Parker's word that it exists not 1,000 places in statute, but in multiple places in statute, but as I read the plain language of the statutes that are amended by this bill, I don't seem to see any language that requires like specific requirements that there has to be a hand-to-hand, face-to-face, eye-to-eye transfer of the child. And so, but if I am going to take that at face value, if this bill were to pass, and we were to see a child who was, I don't know, 90 hours old, 95 hours old, a week old. Clearly, I couldn't do math on the mic. What happens then? I think there's lots of unanswered and outstanding questions here. I request a no vote on this bill. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 83. All in favor say aye. Aye. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. I guess I'm jumping the gun there. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion is for the adoption of Senate Bill 83. All those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. The chair is not in doubt. Senate Bill 83 is adopted.